I grew up in a Christian home with an older sister and two incredibly loving parents who were devoted to both my sister and I and working in the church. I grew up and everything was normal, and in the end of grade 10, so it would be from about January to May of 2012, I got 5 concussions in that period of time, and then my sister and brother-in-law and I were in a car accident. I started experiencing some pain in my head and in my neck. I had to get reading glasses, I was having some trouble speaking, and my hand-eye coordination was pretty terrible. And I assumed it was just because of these injuries that I had gotten, so I didn't think anything of it. Until it started to get worse, so October of 2012, I went to the doctor. My mom took me to a clinic and they ran some tests. They said that I had a tumor in the center of my spinal cord, in my neck, and that it was probably cancer and I needed to go see a specialist right away. They finally figured out what was going on, that I did have something like a tumor in the center of my spinal cord, but it wasn't cancer as far as they knew. It was benign and it was causing these problems, but it was something that I could deal with. So I went on with my life and went to physio, and they put me on some medication and the pain went away and everything was fine. And then September of 2015, I started getting these pains again in my head and in my neck, a lot worse than they had been before. So I went back for some more tests, and this tumor in my spinal cord had gotten bigger, and it was causing me some more problems. January of 2016, January 15th, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. So basically my ovaries don't know how to be ovaries, and it was incredibly stressful for me because growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do and I didn't really know where I wanted to live, but I knew for certain that I wanted to be a mother. And in an instant, my potential ability to bear children was brought into question, and it was a feeling that I'd never felt before. I couldn't eat or drink at all or sleep for 9 days. I lost 16 pounds. I was hospitalized twice. The second time that we went, I was there for, they thought my kidneys were shutting down because I was so dehydrated. So they went and brought me to the hospital and took me in for some tests, and turns out there was nothing physically wrong with me. So they sent me to the psych ward, which was probably the most debilitating feeling that I've ever felt. That the physical pain that I was in was a figment of my imagination and something that I couldn't control. So I went to Kelowna to visit my best friend, and I stayed there for a week. And it was great to see her and just get away from everything that was happening. And the last day that I was there, on May 15th, we went out to the club and I was drugged and sexually assaulted by multiple people. I flew home the next day, and my best friend took me to the hospital where I filed a report and had an exam done that confirmed everything that had happened. And the next day I drove my parents to the airport. They had planned a month-long trip to Italy and had been looking forward to this trip for a really long time, and I knew that if I told them what had happened, they wouldn't have gone because they loved me more. And so I didn't say anything. I spent the first couple weeks at home by myself, just really angry with God and bitter about what had happened, and angry that the world seemed like such a terrible place. My life just didn't go the way I thought it would go. I had grown up thinking that my life was boring, and in a year and a half my life became something that I never could have imagined. And in everything, I was angry that God had abandoned me. I was bitter that He had left me when I thought I needed Him most. They teach you in Sunday school all of these nice stories of Noah's Ark and Daniel in the lion's den, and Joseph when he was sold into slavery and he went to prison for 7 years, and then God redeemed him. But they usually skip over that bad part. They don't talk about what Joseph did in those 7 years when he was alone. They just skip right to the end. They don't talk about the in-between, and I was in the in-between. I realized that those days when I was driving down the highway and screaming at God because I was so angry and that I didn't want to do this anymore and I didn't want to be here anymore, I still ended up at home, safe and sound in bed, and I still woke up the next morning and life went on. And when I felt like I had no strength left to keep going and I felt like I didn't want to keep going anymore, I still managed to wake up and go to work. And life still managed to keep going for me, which I know now couldn't have happened with my own strength. It was only by God's grace that I made it through that time in my life. And the end seems really far away, but I know that the end will justify the means that it took to get there, because I have hope that it'll all be redeemed one day. And I have hope that there's a place where there's no tears and there's no sorrow and there's no pain. I have hope that there will be good in life in the midst of the struggle and in the midst of the trial. And though I'm not out of the in-between yet, I have hope that I'll make it to the end and be thankful for what I've gone through, because I've made it this far, and I never thought that I would. The 15th of the month was always a really bad day for me. Everything happened on the 15th of the month. And January 15th of 2018 is my first day of Bible school in Spain. I'm going back to reconnect with God and figure out that even though I don't always feel it in my heart, what I know in my head to be true of God is enough to get me by. And that the 15th of the month will be redeemed, just like my own pain and struggle will be redeemed at the end.